Well, folks, we're back with another Iksar AMA. That's right, Hearthstone dev Iksar hopped onto Twitter to answer some questions from the community. It's been a little while since we've seen one of these, but some interesting topics, wild balance stuff, teasers for future expansions, teasers for an 11th class, some arena details that are fairly harrowing, which we'll get to. But let's go ahead and kick it off here with this question about wild format balance changes. There has been a bit of a clamor in the wild community recently about, I think, Ignite Mage and Quest Hunter and Quest Warrior all feeling kind of broken and dominant. Those are the ones I've heard about, at least. And are there going to be balance changes coming to wild? Iksar had a bit of a snarky reply here. I'll let you guys break that down. But at the end of the day, concludes, we'll see what we can do, okay? So they're aware of wild having some power outliers, it looks like, and are at least going to take a look. I guess that's some consolation. I don't have a lot to say on this one because I've not been playing wild lately, but I think wild deserves some love and attention. There are a lot of people playing wild, so I'm rooting for you guys and hope that some balance changes do come to pull down the power level on some of those crazy broken decks. All right, so next up here's a question about a Nazjatar expansion. And if you don't know Nazjatar, it is like the capital of the Naga, and Queen Ashara hangs out there. So we haven't seen a whole lot of Naga representation in Hearthstone, but they're a pretty big race in World of Warcraft. And wouldn't be shocked if we go to Nazjatar. And Iksar says, interesting, very interesting, which these teases to me feel like these are like soft confirmations that this is coming, because he chooses to respond to this and he gives us this really teasy answer. And on top of that, there was also this really weird interaction. Let me pull this up as well. Iksar says, I had a shower thought that you should, oh no, that's not right. Here we go. I was thinking about detergents lately. Tide has such a good brand. It really goes off about Tide here and how it's a better brand than Gain. And of course I replied, Tide, Nazjatar. So there are a few different Tide named things in Warcraft, and some of them related to Nazjatar directly. So I'm kind of, like doing some weird theories here. It may just be a coincidence, but the fact that both of these came up make me think something like Tides of Ashara could be a real expansion name. Usually they don't use names they've already used, so there's a few other Tide themed things that have popped up in Warcraft history. But Tides of Ashara could be a new name that signals a Nazjatar expansion. So I'm locking in my prediction right now. Tides of Ashara, maybe not the first expansion of the year, but maybe the summer expansion with some water themed, beach themed summer stuff. Tides of Ashara. Lock it in. All right, so next up's a question about some of the restructuring and organizational stuff that happened on the Hearthstone team. They mentioned previously, like, they've reshuffled how exactly teams are put together and how dedicated their focus is going to be. It sounds like ultimately giving people more direct ownership over features and design, so they can kind of make decisions without having to go through all kinds of different approval and red tape. Less meetings, as Iksar puts it here. So that is a good thing. Anytime you get inside these giant corporations, there's all this bloat and middle management and all these sign-offs you have to go through that slows down everything. And if they can remove that and just make more stuff and do more things, I think that's going to be good for Hearthstone. Iksar says that we'll likely see more small improvements. People will just do the thing instead of having it signed off 100 times. That's awesome. I love to see that. I think Hearthstone, for the longest time, barely got anything done, and that has been improving over time. We're seeing more features than ever. And if we keep moving in that direction, that's a great sign for the game. All right, here's a question about the core set and what's going to happen with the rotation of the core set this year. Iksar says there will be big changes to the core set, but I wouldn't expect it to drastically alter the way the game is played. The goal of the core set is partly to have interesting cards to choose from. Also, though, a baseline set of cards for new players to get used to standard. So he says there will be some powerful cards that people put in a lot of decks, and also some lower power cards as well. And previously Blizzard mentioned that like not the entire core set is going to rotate. They plan to keep, fairly large chunks of it, but they'll move out some cards and move some new ones in. We've seen some core set cards really do work. I'm thinking most notably of like Talon Forge Ring has been in a ton of decks as a core set card. Curious if they add any actual new cards, like newly designed cards to the core set again. We got a lot this past year, but they may just bring in old stuff. A lot of people asking for Tess Greymane, for instance, to come back to support Burgle Rogue. I don't think she'd get played in Burgle Rogue for the record, but I would absolutely love to play Tess in Standard again, so sign me up for that one. This is kind of a crazy question, and I didn't know this before. What was the most challenging or difficult design decision you had to make during development of any feature? Iksar says, whether or not to make Demon Hunter temporary or permanent. I can't remember ever hearing this story, but apparently Demon Hunter was maybe going to rotate out after a year instead of sticking around permanently. And in fact, he says the smartest designers I've ever known wanted temporary. Thinking that was probably Mike Dene, but who knows? I didn't know this. I thought it was always the plan to make it permanent, just keep adding and growing to Hearthstone. I wonder if a future class would have that same conversation, or if they plan to just keep classes around forever. I personally think they should stick around forever. I would hate for somebody to fall in love with Demon Hunter and then have it rotate out of Standard and feel like they couldn't play or experience that fantasy anymore. So kind of wild. What do you guys think? Do you wish Demon Hunter had rotated out? I mean, in that first week it came out, I bet some people were wishing it would rotate after a week, but I think ultimately it's been a good addition to the game. And then also goals for next year, to answer the other half of this. They want to improve existing features more than add more layers on top of what we have. That's great. I think we've been asking for that for a while. It feels like plugging more and more stuff into the game isn't always a good sign, but improving the things that are working well, what we already have, is a good direction to take. So I'm excited to see the stuff that we already love being improved, like duels, for instance. All right, tease here for a future class. Is 10 the cap, or can we get an 11th class? Forever is too long not to do an 11th class. We've discussed it at length. It's just a matter of which one is next to do. I read all those words out of order, but I think you got the gist of it. And, you know, this is an interesting answer. I feel like Iksar has backed this answer up a little bit since previous examples of answering a similar sort of question. Before, he was like specific to the kind of classes they were considering, and I feel like he might have even said things like, it's probably happening. This feels like a retraction of that a little bit, which could mean like maybe they've decided to hold back on a new class for a while, or alternatively, they're getting closer to it being done and don't want to get hype up too much, or like too much commitment going too early, like let the cat out of the bag sort of thing. So I don't know which direction it is, but ultimately 11th class is still coming. I think personally it'll be Death Knight. Frozen Throne was an incredibly popular expansion for Hearthstone. Lich King is a very powerful character in Warcraft. It brings people in. They love it. So I think my guess is we'll see a Death Knight, Lich King, Arthas class added to Hearthstone in the next year. I actually think it'll be the third expansion this year. That is totally speculation made up, but I just think they're going to want to go back to that well sooner rather than later. Maybe it would be at the start of the next core set. So like maybe a year from now, basically, or 14 months from now or whatever would be the next class release, kind of like we saw with Illidan. But I too think this is going to happen pretty soon. All right, so this next question's about arena adjustments, and kind of bad news for arena players, I think. I'm not going to go to the trouble to read all of these tweets. I'll have them here if you feel like pausing and reading this, or checking the link in the description to go scroll through this. You're certainly welcome to, but the gist of it is that the guy who did micro adjustments in Arena, which was Hearthstone's data guy, you can see right here, now left to second dinner to join Ben Brode, as many Hearthstone people have. Since they left, there's basically a holdup in that process because they handled so much of it, both the kind of programmatic side of it that they developed, but also there was apparently some manual stuff that went into it as well. And as such, Hearthstone is sort of pivoting as a team to figure out how to handle Arena in the future and what that's going to look like. So it sounds to me like in the short term, maybe not a lot of great ways to do Arena micro adjustments. And in the long term, maybe good news that there's going to be like a more direct hands-on approach to Arena balance in the future. So if you're an Arena player, maybe not looking great for the who knows how long, but long term, perhaps you'll have a better outcome, hopefully. And then finally here, let's close it off with this one. Any chance at a multiverse expansion with Overwatch, Diablo, StarCraft cards being made, the Heroes of the Storm of the Hearthstone world? And Iksar says, yes, ? Team has mixed feelings on heading outside Warcraft, but it's certainly an opportunity to appeal to different people. My guess is we'd start with an internal IP. Diablo, Overwatch, StarCraft, etc., before potentially branching out to external IP, Marvel, Naruto, or Fresh Prince. I think the day Fresh Prince gets added to Hearthstone is the day I move on. I don't know if I can jump the shark quite that hard. Now, speaking more generally, I'm not the biggest fan of this personally. I feel like there's so much Warcraft to pull from and so many cool ways to slice this one that I don't know that we need to move to these outside universes. I think it would feel like a gimmick or sort of a marketing ploy more than like a good fit. Now, I'd probably tolerate it if it's a Blizzard universe and if it brought people to the game, right? That can still be a net win. It just might go against my personal preferences. I would be totally okay with it, I think, if the characters fit into the sort of timeline or lore to some extent. Like, if it's Raynor from StarCraft, but he's a knight and he's wearing like knight armor and we just call him Raynor and he's like Raynor, but he doesn't have a big battle rifle, from the future or a crazy spaceship, I think I'd be okay with it. Now, Warcraft does have space stuff, like Drain and I have a spaceship, for instance, but it's still kind of molded to fit within the story. It's still got that medieval fantasy aspect, not full on sci-fi type stuff. So, I could work with that. Like, I think Diablo was okay. It doesn't bother me. Diablo's in the game. He's a big demon dude. He kind of fits with big demons in Warcraft. Like, that's totally acceptable to me. So it's probably just about how it's done and how well it fits for my personal preferences. That said, whatever's good for the game is good for me in the long run. So I would tolerate it either way. But I'm curious. What do you guys think? Would you like to see other universes in Hearthstone, Blizzard, Spider-Man? Well, where's the line for you for what's acceptable? I'm very curious to hear. And there you go. That's it for this AMA. There were some other topics I didn't quite cover that weren't as interesting to me personally. So, of course, you can check the link in the description, as always, to see this full thread from Iksar. And always curious to hear your thoughts on all of these replies and anything else you can think of in the comments below. Look forward to that. Thanks much, as always, for watching. And until next time, game on.